Hey guys, wanted to give you an overview of the tab layout and at least present maybe a better option for including pictures in these tabs, and make sure you understand how you can aggregate content in an Itrium system to achieve the results you need without having to code a bunch of embedded tags in HTML. So what I have here is a sample page on one of my sites, and it has a tab control. So this is the exact same tab control, just styled differently than what is on the current Immunolink site. And if I go from tab to tab to tab, the content is identical, right? But really I have three very different structures. So in the first one I have just HTML, the second one I have a grid, and the third one I have an inner page. So I'm going to open up the site and I'm going to show you what I've got here. So I've got my page, and here's my inner page that has the tabs layout. And then my inner page has three things in it. Now, the way the tab control works is by default, every child of this container, this inner page, is going to represent a tab. So when I edit this thing, I have my first tab, which is HTML. Now, HTML, you cannot put anything in. You can't put parts in an HTML thing. So you are going to be in a situation where you would do like an embedded image, right? So you might use the insert image feature here, or you might jump into HTML mode and you might code an image tag. And this is what you currently have in the current system. So you're doing things like this, source equals, and then I saw a path that is pointing to an image that appears to be in the repository or maybe in the blobs directory or someplace, which in my opinion is prone to problems, because this image tag, no matter what you do, if the image moves or is replaced or is deleted on the site, then you will no longer have access to it and it won't show up in the page like we have today. But the second two look identical right now, and they are just containers. So one is an inner page. So an inner page is really just a container that can be laid out like a grid or anything else. And a grid is really just an inner page that can only be a grid. So the only difference between these two things is that on an inner page, I can change the layout options. So if I want it to behave like a grid, then I have to tell it to be a grid, right? So in this case, I want this thing to be 24 by 24. And if I come back to my site, it's still going to look like the exact same thing. So when I refresh here and I go to tab 3, it's the same. But now that I have these tabs set up with container-based content, I can put things in them. So tab 2, for instance, if I want to put a picture in it, I can upload a picture part. And you have pictures on the site right now, but the difference is we're not embedding the picture in the HTML here. So I'm going to go and browse and grab a file, and I'll go find some image that I've got. So let's go into Dropbox, Itrium images, and we'll go grab something for, sure, any of these, great. So here's that's pretty big. Let's take that screenshot. So I'm going to upload this. So now I've got an image in my site. It's inside of this tab. So you can see I've got HTML and picture. If I go and look at my grid layout, because I can control the layout of a grid, it's 24 by 24. So I can save it, and you know how to do this already. So now I can come back here and I can refresh my page. And when I go to tab 2, now I'm going to have my text with my big image underneath it, right? And then I've got the flexibility at that point to control the layout and do all the things that I know how to do with Itrium. So I can come in and I can alter this, and I can say, you know what, this is going to be 12 by 12, right? Or just 12 for each element. And I'm going to save that and refresh. And now I've got a tab with a page that looks the way I expect it to work. Okay, now this image is here, and it is tied to this picture element. Now this picture element has a URL, and it's something that I can go copy and paste. And I'm going to show you what happened on the site you have now. So any way you got there, I'm not sure, but I might copy this picture to my clipboard. And then I'm going to go back to my HTML in tab 1, and I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to go put an image in here. So I'm going to click the image option. And in our world, it actually takes you into a feature where you can upload the pictures, or you can paste it from something you copied to the clipboard. So now my image is here, and I can save this thing. All right, so this is good. So this thing is here, and it's all working, and we're all happy. So I'm going to come back here. I'll refresh my page. I'll go tab 1 now. My image is here, right? because I just put it in there. Since it's in HTML, I don't have a grid-based layout feature in HTML, so if I wanted this to be right aligned like tab 2 or anything else, I'm going to have to do some HTML maneuvering, create a table, do something a little bit more complex. But this image is no longer needed in the system. So I'm like, you know what? We don't want it. So I cut it from the system. I remove it. Now tab 2, I know that image is not there. But tab 1 had a reference to that image, right? That was legitimate. So if I come back to the system and I refresh it, now I go to tab 1 and he's like, hold on a second, placeholder, what's that? I'm missing my image. And if there was no alt tab or anything on this image, that wouldn't even show up. It would just be gone. Tab 2 I expect to be gone because I removed it there. So my recommendation is that if you're going to have pictures in HTML or text combined in the tabs on the product pages, then we should probably use a grid or an inner page for each of the tabs. And it's easy to create them, right? So you're here, we've already got tabs on the site. What you can do is you can go and edit your section that has the tabs, open up the editor, go to the Contents tab. In this first tab, I know it's HTML, right? So what I'm going to do is I want to move it into a container. So I'm going to make this into a grid in my case. So I'm going to move this in by selecting the grid type, and then I've got the item I want selected, and I can select multiple items here. And then I'm going to select Move All Into. So what Move All Into does, it takes everything that's selected and will move it into a new thing, a new grid. If I did Move Each Into, it would create one new grid for each thing that was selected and move the corresponding part into that grid. But now I'll just say Move All Into. So now I've got this grid here. I want to move it back to the top, make it my first tab. I go and edit it, change its title to be tab 1. And so now I've got this thing with this HTML stuff in it. I want to get rid of this image that I didn't want there, and I can save it. And now that it's a grid, well, what can I do with a grid? I can put things in a grid. So I'm going to go and view it, and here's the picture I had that I put on my clipboard. I'm going to share that right in there. And so now when I go back to my site and refresh, tab 1 is here. Great. Simple and easy. All right, so that's the overview for tabs and other structures within tabs to help you lay out the page. As far as the site's concerned, I think maybe if this approach will work for you guys, I would go and change the content template so that we're creating this tab section with grids by default instead of with individual HTML pieces. So let me know if that makes sense and if you have any questions. Sorry for the long video, but I needed a little extra time here. All right, thanks guys.